Okay. And if you have any questions, jump in. And here we go. All right, so the fifth and final. Come on, load. Okay, fifth and final theme of geography, human-environment interaction. So in this final theme, we talk about when humans are presented with complex problems and issues, they come up with solutions, and how the solutions that they present usually impacts the environment, how they change their environment, how they modify their environment. If you guys think back to human civilization over the last 200 to 300 years, human civilization has been transformed dramatically due to changes in technology. You know, if you think back to 200 to 300 years ago, how humans traveled compared to today, how they communicate, how even the foods they eat, their habits, the things they do on a daily basis have dramatically changed. And what's changed with it is our surroundings. So that is the essence of human environment interaction. This is a good example of it too, and I'll explain why in a second. This picture was taken on Fifth Avenue, a very populated, busy city or street, very populated, busy street in New York City in 1900, 120 years ago. Okay, so the picture is a little grainy, a little hard to see, but all of these are horse-drawn carriages, all of them right here. The only car is the one that's circled right there. People are either on foot or traveling by horse and buggy, with the exception of this one car. Fast forward 13 years later, and what has changed?
There's like more vehicles, a lot more than, horses.
Yeah, there's only one. Look at the change that's taken place from this picture in just 13 years. You know, that's incredible. 13 years, we went from one of the busiest streets in America, populated by horse and carriage, to cars. You might be wondering, all right, well, what does it have to do with our environment? You know, what does it have to do with our surroundings? Okay, so in 1900, since humans were mainly traveling by train and by horseback, there was more of an emphasis on railroad use. Roads were smaller because horses and carriages weren't as large as cars, so you can make roads that were smaller, and cities were far less populated. Fast forward 13, 20 years later, and now all of a sudden, more and more Americans are traveling by car. So Americans have to change, and people throughout the world have to change and alter their surroundings. All of a sudden, what powers cars? What powers the vast majority of cars today?
Gas.
Absolutely. Petroleum. Gas. Yep. So all of a sudden, Americans, there's more of an emphasis on drilling for oil. Oil becomes refined, it's turned into petroleum, becomes gasoline that we put in our cars so we can drive. Now all of a sudden, because Americans can get from place to place quicker, roadways are built. So now you go from having very small cities, the vast majority of Americans living in small towns and countrysides, to more Americans moving into big cities, traveling more. The environment around us changes. That's human environment interaction. So that picture is pretty cool. So here's some notes. I'll let you read through this. There's a couple important terms here. Make sure you know what cultural ecology is. I'll let you read this, and then I'll give you like 30 seconds to go ahead and read that.
Wait, did you already take attendance?
I have, but who is that speaking?
Fernando.
Hey, what's up, Fernando? Okay, I'll count you as present.
All right.
Thanks for letting me know.
My bad.
All right. Okay. What's that?
No, it's because I just saw the email that said be 1 to 2 minutes early. I was like, oh, it's already 11. So I was like, okay,
Yeah. Set yourself an alarm, okay?
all right.
All right, so human environment interaction. Like I said in the picture, it's how humans adapt to their surroundings. When geographers study the relationship between us, humans, and our natural environment, our wooded areas, our plains, our rivers, mountainous areas, that's known as cultural ecology. When they look at, for example, when a mountain is transformed into like a strip mine, it's strip mine meaning like parts of it are cut off and mined for its resources, like its gravel, its coal, its fuels. Geographers look at that. It's cultural ecology. It's how our culture uses the earth to adapt to our needs. A good example of human environment interaction in the mid to late 2000s, the school district that you guys live in, District 200, did a population study. And at the time, they predicted that over the next 10 to 20 years, the population of Woodstock was going to grow immensely in size. The economy was doing really good. More and more people were moving into McHenry County. And so they realized that if populations keep growing, what's going to happen to the amount of students in Woodstock school districts? Need an answer.
More spread out.
Well, not so much more spread out. If all of a sudden you got more and more people coming to live in Woodstock, what's going to happen to the student population of the school district?
Overpopulation?
Yeah, it's going to increase. You're going to have overpopulation. So what they realized was they have to build a new high school because Woodstock High School, one of the oldest high schools in McHenry County, was no longer equipped to deal with all these students. So they built a new high school. They built Woodstock North. Well, unfortunately, the economy crashed in 2008, and the population growth that they were anticipating never really materialized. But still, you have more space that was created. And all of a sudden, Woodstock North, which at one time was just a big cornfield and more of a swampy area, is now a high school that accommodates about 950 students. Human environment interactions. Humans look at population growth. They modify their environment to build a new school. So as populations grow, what happens to the supply of food and energy as more and more people are born, not only here, but in the world? What do you think happens to the supply of food and energy? Any guesses? Anybody? Or I have to call on somebody. Let's Zaira, what do you think happens to the supply of food and energy as more and more people are born?
It has to get bigger?
Yeah, it has to get bigger. Very good. So look what happens here. I got a couple graphs to show you guys to illustrate human environment interaction. Okay, so this graph here, if you look, this goes by 50-year increments. This is 1700 all the way out to 2100, to the year 2100. So we haven't got there yet. Right here, we're 2020 right here. Look at what's happened to the world's population. In 1700, it was 600 million people lived in the world. Today, over almost 8 billion people inhabit the world. That's a drastic change over the past 300 years. Just look at from the year 1800 to 1928. In 128 years, the world's population doubled in size from 1 to 2 billion. It's more than doubled since that time. It's gone from 2 billion to 7 billion in a span of about 100 years. So you might be thinking, all right, well, if that's really the case, aren't people starving? And how do we increase our food supply? Well, look what's happened. Since that time, we've been able, this is just in the United States, we've been able, since the world's population doubled right around here to about here, we've been able to drastically increase corn production, even though we're farming about the same land size. Why? Because we've had massive changes in technology, the combustion engine, mechanized vehicles, computers, science, fertilizers and seeds that we can use to drastically increase the amount of crops we can produce. That's human environment interaction. We can change our environment to suit our changing needs. Okay, here's some examples. In economics, I teach economics. In economics, we talk about something known as a trade-off. You see that word right there. A trade-off means that when you make a decision, you're going to have to give something up in order to get something else. You know, like right now, you guys are in class with me. What are you giving up? You could be giving up time to sleep, play video games, go outside, go out with friends. That's your trade-off. So I'll let you read through this, and this shows some of the trade-offs illustrated when humans adapt and change their surroundings. Go ahead and read that really quick. Okay. So as people drive more, there's more of a reliance on what are known as fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are non-renewable energy. Non-renewable means that there's only a finite amount of this resource available in the world, like petroleum, natural gas. It's not like there's just endless amounts. Once you use it up, it's gone. You're not going to have more of it. Whereas you have some types of what are known as renewable energy. You see it at the bottom there? Renewable energy means that at this point, as of right now, you have an infinite amount of this resource: wind power, solar power, nuclear power. You have an infinite amount at this time to create energy types. So over the past 20 to 30 years, there's been more of an emphasis on sustainable forms of energy, renewable energy, because of the side effects of using non-renewable energy. Using petroleum for cars, natural gas for heating homes. You have what's known as the greenhouse effect, which promotes climate change, the warming of the earth because of trapping radiation inside the atmosphere. So as a result of that, humans are adapting to this situation, their environment, by using more solar, wind, and nuclear powered energies. Okay. This shows how regions of the world are poised to use energy. You'll see that Asia and the Pacific area is poised to really jump ahead of everybody else in terms of using coal, oil, gas, and renewable, non-renewable forms of energy. What is the big country here that you think is consuming a lot of this resource within Asia? Anyone want to take a guess?
China or Japan?
Yeah, China. China is the big one. Yes, China is poised to use more energy than most of the rest of the world combined. North America with the United States, Canada, and Mexico is behind, followed by Europe. And then some of your African and Middle Eastern countries are down here, or Southwest Asian. Okay. So this is the exit slip, but we're going to skip that for right now. We're kind of running up on time here. The other thing I wanted to direct you to that has to do with human-environment interaction. For your project, it says use this link to answer the following regarding human-environment interaction. There's a bug in here. Okay, so if you were to click on that link, it's going to pull you up to this website. It's called Historical Aerials. This is kind of cool. And again, I'll have this in the video in case you need to go back and watch how to use this. So if you were to click on, here's my address. I'm going to click on Mitchell Street. Okay, so here's Mitchell Street. You go to Aerials. Okay, so this is what Mitchell Street looks like in 2016. And if you wanted to compare it to how it's changed, you should be able to side by side. Hit side by side. And over here, you want to hit Aerials. 2016. Now, obviously, 2016, that's changed. But if you want to compare 2016 Woodstock to Woodstock in 1954, this is what it looks like. And watch, here's, I believe this is Woodstock High School right here. Watch how things have changed. You know, look at just where my mouse is right there. You drag it over. A lot of this was open fields. So this is a great example. There's I believe that's Emerson Park. just open fields. And you can zoom in and out. And see how humans, as Woodstock has grown in size, it's become more populated and more built up. So for example, like if you look at this part of Woodstock, this is down by Dean Street, mostly open fields and farmland in the 1950s. So you could put any type of address in there and it'll give you some options. Again, go back and watch this video to just go through the steps again. Really quick, you just want to hit compare. When you hit compare, it'll give you a side-by-side option, and then you can click some dates over here to compare it and some dates on this side if you want to compare it, and then you just drag it. You just left click and drag over. So you can play around with that. That's a good example of human environment interaction. So questions I can answer at this time. So at this point, you should have a good understanding of what human environment interaction is, some examples of human environment interaction, population, resource use, renewable, non-renewable energies, and now you should have a decent idea of how to use Historical Aerials website. Again, I'll send this video out in a little bit.